Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really crucial piece of the Eightfold Path, Sammā-ājīva, right livelihood.
That's right.
And, it often gets boiled down to something simple like just work honestly.
Yeah.
But the sources we've looked at suggest it's much, much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamental. It really dictates whether your life is moving towards peace or, frankly, towards more chaos.
Right. It's easy to miss that. People think, okay, ethical footnote.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's this hinge point, your job, your career.
Mm.
It either builds a foundation for peace or it actively blocks it, creates
Yeah.
constant issues.
Exactly. It's like a major ethical gatekeeper. The definition itself is pretty clear. Sammā-ājīva means you abandon wrong livelihood. That's Micchā-vaṇijjā. And you support yourself only through ways that, well, cause no harm, earning your living righteously.
So it's not just ticking a box. It's about making sure your work life and your values actually line up.
Precisely. Congruence is the key word there.
Okay, so let's tackle what seems like the first big question that jumps out from the material.
Mm-hmm.
If the goal is just ethical living, why do we need Sammā-ājīva spelled out separately? We already have Sammā-kammanta, right action. Doesn't right action already cover things like not killing, not stealing? Why the extra rule specifically for, your 9 to 5?
That's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of it. The distinction is all about scope and consistency. Sammā-kammanta, or right action, is broader. It deals with your general physical actions in daily life. Think basic precepts.
Like deciding not to lash out in anger or choosing not to shoplift something, sort of individual moments.
Exactly, those isolated actions. But Sammā-ājīva, right livelihood, zooms right in. It's specifically about the method you use to get the 4 necessities: food, clothing, shelter, medicine, your job, your primary source of income, day in, day out.
Ah, okay. So right action is like avoiding a single pothole,
Yeah.
maybe. But right livelihood is about making sure the whole road you're driving on isn't fundamentally flawed.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. It's systemic versus incidental.
Right.
And the sources are very firm on this. If your main way of earning a living depends on harming others, even indirectly, your mind simply cannot achieve the purity needed for deeper spiritual practice. It just can't settle.
So the job itself creates constant mental static.
Constant static, constant conflict, right? Livelihood is framed as the last gate of, let's call it, external control. You have to get this right before you can really move into the serious internal training. You need a clean workshop before you can start crafting anything delicate.
That sequencing makes a lot of sense. You can't possibly find deep focus or mindfulness if your entire workday involves, deception or exploitation. Your job itself is the biggest distraction.
It becomes an insurmountable obstacle.
Okay, let's get concrete then. For lay practitioners, what does this external control look like in practice? The sources mention 5 specific kinds of trade, Micchā-vaṇijjā 5, that are absolute no-goes, things you just cannot do.
Yes. These 5 are seen as inherently harmful. They're grouped around things that damage life or consciousness. First one, Micchā-vaṇijjā, trading weapons.
Pretty straightforward. Don't profit from violence.
Exactly. Second, Sammā-ājīva. This is trading in living beings, humans, or animals specifically meant for slaughter, exploiting life itself for profit.
Okay.
Third is Sammā-ājīva, the meat trade, but specifically dealing in meat that comes from intentional killing for commercial purposes. So the business of slaughter.
Got it. So
Yeah.
those first 3 are very directly about protecting life, physical safety. Then it shifts slightly.
It does. The fourth is Sammā-ājīva, trading in poisons. Again, seems obvious, don't sell things designed to harm or kill.
But the 5th one is interesting, Micchā-vaṇijjā. This is trading in intoxicants, fermented drinks, alcohol, drugs. This one feels like it touches on social responsibility more.
It really does. And there's a fascinating subtlety here. The texts are clear, right? Livelihood isn't about prohibiting you from breaking the 5th precept by, say, having a drink yourself. That falls under personal conduct, right action maybe.
Right. Personal choice.
But the prohibition here in right livelihood is squarely on selling or distributing these things commercially, making a business out of it.
Why the distinction? Why focus on the seller?
Because selling intoxicants is seen as actively encouraging others towards heedlessness, toward losing mindfulness. And when people lose that self-control, well, they're far more likely to break other more serious precepts: violence, theft, misconduct.
Ah, so the seller is facilitating the conditions for harm across the board.
Precisely. It's an occupational restriction based entirely on preventing wider social harm. If your business model inherently contributes to the community's potential for danger or moral decline, it's classified as Micchā-vaṇijjā, wrong livelihood.
That brings up a really practical point for today, though. What about complex industries like pharmaceuticals? They trade in powerful substances. Some are narcotics, technically drugs, but the intention is healing. How does that fit?
That's where intent and systemic outcome become critical. The sources consistently point towards the primary aim and the overall effect of the trade. If a system, like regulated medicine, is genuinely designed and controlled for well-being,
With safeguards and therapeutic intent.
exactly, then the ethical picture is very different from, say, a trade purely designed to profit from addiction or escapism, often with little regard for the consumer's ultimate welfare. The spirit is, avoid work that systemically generates harm or relies on ignoring the well-being of others.
So the core principle is ensuring your career, your way of making a living, ideally contributes positively, or at the very least, doesn't actively undermine the well-being of the community. It needs to be neutral, at minimum.
Well put, yes.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. We've talked about not harming others, but right livelihood also involves not harming yourself. This feels like a really important, maybe often overlooked aspect. Observing the middle way, Micchā-vaṇijjā, in how we work.
Yes, this is where it really elevates beyond simple ethics into a personal spiritual practice. The sources highlight two main ways our work can harm us. The first is pretty obvious: physical harm.
Like burnout, working yourself into the ground.
Exactly. Chronic overwork, sacrificing sleep, health deteriorating. If your job consistently leaves you physically depleted, you lose the basic capacity for practice. You can't meditate effectively if you're constantly exhausted or sick. Your body isn't ready.
Makes sense. In the second way.
This one is huge, especially today. Psychological harm. Chasing money fueled by intense greed, or jobs that demand constant high levels of anxiety, stress, manipulation, internal tension.
That pressure cooker environment.
Right, and that ongoing stress, that tension, it's seen as a direct loss of the very thing the path aims to cultivate. Peace, mindfulness. That inner quietude is considered the most essential personal benefit you get from practice.
So if your job makes you rich but costs you your inner peace,
You've made a bad trade, according to this framework. You've essentially engaged in wrong livelihood from a self-harm perspective. You've given up the highest good peace for something much lower material gain. This constant psychological churning actively blocks any real progress in the internal stages of the path.
you're undermining yourself before you even get to the deeper work.
Precisely. You've defeated the purpose.
That really is the acid test for so many modern jobs, isn't it? Is this compatible with any kind of inner stillness? Wow.
It's a tough question for many.
Okay, we've covered lay people. What about those who fully dedicated their lives? Monks, bhikkhus. How does right livelihood apply when your job is the spiritual path itself?
Well, for monks, the standard is, as you'd expect, significantly higher. Their right livelihood is fundamentally about purity and how they receive sustenance relying on freely offered alms and hindapat. The big thing to avoid is called anasana.
Anasana, what does that translate to?
Roughly, improper seeking. Basically, trying to manipulate or unduly influence lay people into giving more support than they otherwise would.
How might that look?
The texts give specific examples. Things like fortune-telling, reading omens, acting as a go-between in business deals. Any activity that shifts the monk's focus from dharma practice towards, well, gaining stuff.
Material gain, yeah.
And one of the most vivid examples of anasana they mention is performing rituals specifically to get offerings, like making holy water, naman, with the expectation of receiving donations or favors in return.
But wait, isn't helping people, maybe giving them blessings or something that makes them feel better, a good thing? Why is making holy water considered improper seeking?
The reasoning here is incredibly profound. It really shows the core intent of the path. Even if the monk has good intentions, genuinely wanting the layperson to feel better or have good luck.
Which seems charitable.
Right, but performing such rituals is classified as tirakanvika. That means something like base knowledge or even animal knowledge.
Wow, animal knowledge. Why so harsh?
Because it encourages the layperson to rely on external things, rituals, magic, the monk's perceived power, instead of relying on the actual teachings, the dharma, and understanding the law of karma. These are the true refuges.
Ah, I see. So the ritual fosters dependency outwards rather than understanding inwards.
Exactly. The monk's role is to guide people towards self-reliance through understanding the truth, not to become a dispenser of temporary magical fixes. It might soothe anxiety short-term, but it undermines the real goal of liberation, which comes from wisdom, not holy water.
It's like giving someone a fish versus teaching them to fish. The ritual is the fish. The Dharma is learning how to fish for yourself.
A perfect analogy, yes.
Okay, it's clear that right livelihood, whether for lay people or monks, takes real effort, real dedication, and sometimes looking at the whole path, all 8 parts, it can feel a bit daunting. People might think, ugh, results seem so far away.
That's a very common feeling.
But what's interesting in the sources is that Sammā-ājīva isn't just about some future payoff. It actually offers immediate benefits. It could be a source of happiness right now while you're practicing.
Absolutely. That's the psychological brilliance baked into it. Think about it. If you conduct your work life honestly, without cheating or exploiting anyone, there's an immediate psychological reward.
Which is?
You don't have that low-level hum of anxiety. You're not constantly looking over your shoulder, worried about getting caught, worried about karmic consequences, legal trouble. That freedom from worry. That is peace, a very real, tangible peace, available day by day.
That lack of inner conflict is itself a huge win.
A huge win. And beyond that, practicing right livelihood actually provides the perfect field to actively cultivate other parts of the path, specifically the Eightfold Path, the 4 bases of success.
Okay, the Eightfold Path, let's unpack those because that sounds like a really practical tool people can use.
Definitely. They are chanda, which is intention or the will to do something. Virya, effort, energy, persistence. Siddha, consciousness or focused thought. And vimamsa, investigation, checking, reflection.
And you apply these to your job.
To your job, exactly. Not just formal meditation. So chanda, you cultivate the genuine wish to do your work ethically, not just for the paycheck, but to uphold principles, to minimize harm.
Okay.
Virya. That's the steady effort to maintain those standards, even when it's tempting to cut corners or when facing pressure. Citta. Keeping your mind focused on the task ethically, not letting greed or frustration hijack the interaction.
And vimamsa, investigation. That sounds like a daily review.
Precisely. At the end of the day, you reflect. How did I do? Did I act with integrity? Did I handle that difficult client with mindfulness? Or did I get swept away by irritation? You might notice, hey, today I managed that stressful situation without losing my cool.
So you see the small wins.
You see the small daily victories. And that builds confidence, builds momentum. When your work, your actions, your livelihood are clean, they create this stable, neutral foundation in the mind. That's why right livelihood comes where it does in the path.
Before the really intensive internal stuff.
Exactly. It prepares the ground. It makes the mind ready for Sammā-vayāma, right effort, Samma-sati, right mindfulness, and Samma-samadhi, right concentration, because your external life isn't constantly churning up conflict and distress.
So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener? Right, livelihood really boils down to a conscious choice. A choice to design a life that minimizes the harm you cause others,
Right.
reduces your own karmic baggage.
And crucially, removes those huge psychological roadblocks for yourself.
Right. When the way you make your living is clean, it gives you this incredible platform of inner focus, dignity, and the mental space you actually need to pursue deeper goals.
And maybe that leaves us with one final thought for you to really chew on. If this principle, right livelihood, seriously asks us to avoid work that creates constant psychological tension, work that forces us to sacrifice our basic inner peace.
That core benefit.
That core benefit. What does that imply about your current ideas of success, about your work-life balance, about your long-term well-being? Is the way you earn your living fundamentally supporting your peace, or is it costing you? Are you trading peace for profit?
Something to definitely reflect on this week. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.